Hello and welcome to the Digital Orphanage. This episode, exploration of Amiga 2000 computers from the Museum of Computing in Swindon. This is a story I've wanted to bring to you all for a while. Within the museum are many displays covering many different computers from throughout the years. However, considering the following it had, I felt that the Amiga was underrepresented. It is also a range of computers that I enjoyed using between 1989 and 1995 between my CPC and PC days. During a museum committee meeting, I put forward a request to enhance the Amiga's presence in the museum and was granted the opportunity to do what I thought best, to create a World of Amiga display showcasing what the Amiga achieved. Hidden away within the museum stores, I found not one but two mystery Amiga 2000s. Introduced by Commodore in March 1987, the Amiga 2000 was initially a big box version of the Amiga 1000, with more expansion capabilities. The initial version A model was quickly replaced with a version B, utilising the new Amiga 500's chipset in a cost reduction exercise that also improved its capabilities. The Amiga 2000 formed the Amiga's high-end workstation backbone for the next 3 years, going through 12 motherboard revisions in that time. With the Amiga 3000 supplanting it in 1990, it was finally discontinued in 1992. With 11 expansion slots inside, with a myriad of uses, you never know what the previous owner may have installed. This makes exploring a big box Amiga particularly exciting. So let's take a closer look and see what we have. As well as different motherboard revisions, the Amiga 2000 came in various configurations. From the base Amiga 2000, which was available mostly with just a single floppy drive that allowed you to then configure it how you wanted, although apparently some did come with hard disks installed, but that was probably a dealer-fitted option. The other main variant was the Amiga 2000 HD, which as it sounds came pre-fitted from the factory with a hard disk drive, and it was a SCSI variant. But Commodore also produced other models based around the Amiga 2000. There was the 2500 that included an accelerator card, initially based on the 68020 processor and then later on the 68030. And then there was a 2500 UX, which was pretty much the same but included the Unix operating system. And then there was the Amiga 1500. Now this was only produced by Commodore in the UK, and I believe it was to fend off the Checkmate Digital Amiga 1500 unit that was an add-on for the Amiga 500. And that basically took an Amiga 2000, took out the hard disk and put two floppy drives in it. So what have we got here? Well, we've got an Amiga 2000, so that would have been a base model, and then we've got an Amiga 2000 HD. All Amiga 2000s have a 5¼ inch drive bay and two 3½ inch drive bays at the front. But also at the front you've got a socket to plug in the keyboard that the unit came with and the two ports for the joystick or mice, and it came with obviously the standard Amiga tank mouse. Other things on the front are a power LED and a hard disk activity LED. But the main exciting part of an Amiga 2000 is around the back. So if we spin these around, along the bottom you've got your usual ports that if you've owned an Amiga 500 you'll be well familiar with. You've got the video port, parallel port, disk drive and the serial port, and they're just like any others on the Amiga 500 and they'll accept any of the peripherals. You've got the same stereo sound output as the rest of the Amiga range, and you've got a mono composite video socket. How useful that was, not sure, because you've got the standard RGB colour coming out of here. But what made the Amiga 2000 the workhorse of the Amiga range were its various slots on the back. From nearest to me we have the video slot, and that contained either an uprated video card or a Genlock card, but it had full access to the Amiga's video signals. Then you've got the CPU card slot, which could be used to replace the processor with a faster model. And then you have an array of slots, which combine either Zorro 2 slots or IBM ISA slots. But the IBM slots are only of use when you've got a bridge board card, which gives you a PC and that the Amiga can then access. But what do our Amiga 2000s have to offer us? Well, the Amiga 2000 at the bottom has some kind of card with what looks like a 15-pin VGA in the graphics card slot. We've also got MIDI by the looks of it, and possibly a SCSI hard disk card. The top Amiga 2000 HD has something in the CPU slot. And we've got what looks like the Amiga hard disk controller, but enough of the outside. And I'm sure, like myself, what you really want to see is what's on the inside of these. And let's have a look at these cards. So now I have both computers with their lids off, and I've removed the screws for taking the cards out as well. But before I take the cards out, I want to give you a little tour of the inside. And for that, I'm going to use a small handheld camera. So here we have the Amiga 2000. And we've actually got an extra card, because this card here didn't have anything on the back. By the number of chips on it, some kind of memory card. Then we have confirmation that this is a hard disk drive card, because it's got the hard disk already mounted on it. Then we have the two floppy drives, different models, and we could see that at the front because one had a door and one doesn't. This looks like the original. This looks like it's been added afterwards. And then on the side we have some kind of video card, and we'll take that out in a minute. On the Amiga 2000 HD, there aren't as many cards in this one, just the two in fact. A hard disk drive card and what looks like an accelerator card. So we'll take all of these out and take a look at them one at a time. And here we have the standard Commodore A2091 hard card fitted with the standard Quantum ProDrive SCSI hard disk. Additionally, we've got more memory, and this one's jumpered for 2 megabytes. Next we have a Great Value Products accelerator card. It's got a 68030 EC variant, so it hasn't got the memory management unit, and it's got a maths coprocessor there, and this one's labelled for 40 MHz. This one isn't populated with any memory, unless there's some already on it at the top here. That could be the memory. Certainly there's nothing in the extra SIM slots. And it's also got some other connectors which look kind of like SCSI. So this may also be a combined SCSI card. Some extra connectors on the back, don't know what those do. So I'll have to look that one up. And that's all that's in the 2000 HD, apart from one floppy drive. And if I give you a look in the case now, you can see where you've got the Amiga Zorro slots at the back here. Then two of them are shared with a 16-bit ISA slot. And then you've got a further two XT slots at the far end here. But these don't do anything until you've got a bridgeboard card. Although you can get some dumb cards that just draw power from these. So that'll be something like a fan card. Then you've got your CPU slot. And then at the far end, you've got the video card slot. But what have we got in the Amiga 2000? Well, the first card is a Commodore A2500 2 meg RAM card, and that's just purely soldered RAM, nothing socketed on this. We then again have an A2091 hard card, again with a Quantum ProDrive. It's got 2 meg of RAM already socketed. And the last card in here is an AGA 2000E, and that won't be AGA as in the 1200, and this card is by Pond Systems. And looking at the number of connections, if we look this one up, I would expect that this is probably some kind of flicker fixer or something like that. There just doesn't seem to be enough connections to be anything else. It's got a 9-pin D socket, and what the dongle on the back was to do was to bring that to the 15-pin VGA standard. There was something else in here though. We've got the MIDI ports, but that's not a card in a socket, and I'll show you what we've got here. That's a small card going straight into a jumper behind the serial port. So that'll be tapping into the Amiga's ability to do MIDI with very little in terms of extra. And now we've got the cards out, we can see what version of the boards we've got on both of them. It's a little bit dusty, so I'm going to use some isopropyl alcohol. We move these wires out of the way. The Amiga 2000 is labelled B2000-CR, so that's the cost-reduced version with the Amiga 500 chipset. Designed by Haney and Fisher, and this one is a revision 6. If we look at the 2000 HD, it's a different colour board, but I can just make out, again, Haney and Fisher, and it's a revision 6 as well, B2000-CR. At the back, we've also got where it says revision 6.2. The same on the 2000. So I think you'll agree, we've got a fine array of cards here. And between these two, I think we can have an Amiga 2000 showing just what this workhorse was capable of. But before we do that, there's going to need to be cleaning, recapping, testing, and then of course we've got what is on these hard disks. So join me in future episodes, and until then, goodbye.
Let me see your identification. We don't need to see his identification. Follow me. Move on. Move on.